Welcome back. Now, FlySafair is set to resume wage talks with trade union Solidarity this week. This after wage talks deadlocked after 3 months of negotiations, bringing about industrial action against the country's largest low-cost carrier. Kirby Gordon, Chief Marketing Officer at FlySafair, joins us now with greater insight on these developments. Thank you so much for your time, Kirby. Now, just lay the table on the grievances of the pilots and really where Labour and FlySafair are butting heads.
Thanks so much for having me on the show. Yeah, I think there are a couple of key issues that are on the table at the moment. It's quite a complex issue because obviously there are so many elements to the way that a pilot is remunerated and the complexity of our business. But effectively, what it really sums up to is the same stuff that always goes on between employers and employees, and that's really about how much work are we delivering and for how much pay. So the big demand on the table that Solidarity have at this stage is for what they're calling a 10.5% increase on their salaries. That's on the basic pay. When one considers the full implications of the cost to company, the demand that they're working with at the moment is actually 20.1%, including bonuses and other flight pays and things. So obviously that's a bit of a tricky position for us to work with for these high-paid individuals, but that's the point that we're at the moment and that we will be negotiating tomorrow.
I do understand that obviously as a company you're coming in from the fact that you are now analyzing your cost base and you're saying that it is unsustainable for you to increase salaries by this much. But coming from, an employee's point of view, I understand that also part of your calculations are based on where inflation is right now, and that is under 3%. It is lower now, but we do come from a high inflation environment. So do you not think that FlySafair should also be taking into account the cumulative effect of the high inflationary environment that we come from and resultant cost of living crisis that has created? I mean, people are still not out of the woods yet in terms of economic hardship.
Of course, no, it is a very difficult time, and I think there are several factors that one considers when you look at this. I mean, obviously one has to look at what the market looks like for those particular types of employees, and that is one of the things that we do very carefully as we benchmark our pilots against what the market looks like. Our pilots are better paid than pilots of some of our biggest competitors, so we certainly have that benchmarking available. But apropos the conversation around inflationary pressure, I mean, we have paid above inflationary increases every year for the past 10 years, I think, with the exception of the year of COVID. So there's really no instance where our pilots or any of our employees are really behind. We've done a very active benchmarking activity, and you're right, inflation this year is particularly low. I mean, many of the major corporations out there, employees have been lucky to get 4%. So, for us to be debating a 20.1% increase is extreme.
Yeah. Kirby, talk to me about the mechanics of the negotiations, because they've been going on for as long as 3 months now, and that wasn't able to prevent the strike.
Yes. So, I mean, that is the mechanics of it are really kind of laid out in terms of the Labour Relations Act. So obviously you go through your beginning kind of negotiations and you reach a certain point where obviously you're not meeting each other on that basis, and then you engage further with the CCMA for mediation. Ultimately, when a deadlock is reached after many attempts, then the CCMA will ultimately issue a strike certificate. You'll then move into a period of industrial action, which is where we're at now, and then of course you move on to, well, in this particular instance, because this is a matter of public interest, there's a Section 150 mediation ongoing, which is where the CCMA will then continue the discussions or continue mediating discussions so that you can ultimately come.
All right. So discussions are still underway. And of course, the next steps really are more talking and more compromise and I guess more negotiation. But then I'm wondering now, because obviously you had this disruption for a day. Can FlySafair customers rest assured that there will be no more disruptions, even though the negotiations are still continuing?
Yes. So what we had done is, last week, we had anticipated that there was likely to be some disruption forthcoming. And so what we had done is we'd actually proactively, sometime in advance, shave down our schedule. So as of today forwards, we're operating on a lighter schedule than what we had before. So our requirement for pilots is much lower than what it was. Unfortunately, yesterday we hadn't implemented that just yet. And the actual industrial action started a day earlier than what we'd anticipated. And so the result off the back of that was that we had to cancel some 26 flights due to pilots that had committed their services and then withdrew them the night before. So going forward from today onwards, and today there have been no interruptions, we know that we've got the crew to crew the schedule that we've got going. More than half of our pilots are actually at work working, significantly more than half of them.
Yeah.
So we're very confident that what we've got published and what we're selling, we can operate.
Yeah, and we know obviously pricing is also based on a supply and demand. So does this impact flight fares in any way?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, that is a very significant point to mention because, of course, in any market, when you extract some of the supply from the market,
yes,
that is going to have an impact on pricing. So in our environment, less so, because what we've for ourselves is that, for the most part, in order to reduce these flights, we've taken 2 flights and combined them. So, for example, you might have had 2 departures from Johannesburg to Cape Town within the space of an hour, and we've now put all of those passengers onto one aircraft. But effectively sold it at, the sort of entry yielding point, if that makes sense. Because obviously, you sell the first seats the cheapest, and then they go up exponentially as the aircraft fills up. So we've sort of, combined all the cheap seats. But of course, what has happened from a market-wide perspective is that you've had you've got a mini supply vacuum at this stage. And so no doubt, I must admit, I haven't actually done an analysis, so I might be speaking out of turn. But it stands to reason that the prices would be higher now amongst other carriers than what they would be because of limited availability.
Yeah. And of course, as much as there was that one-day disruption now, and of course with the new schedule, does then from a company point of view bring in a cost implication that extends beyond the actual day of the strike?
Well, absolutely. I mean, I think this is the point that we've been reiterating along the whole way. I mean, industrial action of this nature, everybody loses. Ultimately, there is a cost implication for the company. I mean, we have actively trimmed down our schedule, so obviously there's an earning cap that we've now put in place. We've got an opportunity cost inherent to it. Yesterday was not a great day, so we disappointed another number of customers. So there's, the matter of not only the lost revenue there, but the reputational damage that one has to deal with as well. Obviously, our own teams being very disappointed because they don't seek to have the kind of experience for customers. Customers who are put out, who are inconvenienced by what's going on, and naturally pilots who are sitting at home and not earning any money. So there's no real winner in the current scenario.
Yeah. Well, Kirby, I do hope that you do get to a speedy negotiation with Labour and a speedy resolution at that. Thank you so much for your time and giving us an update on this. That was Kirby Gordon, Chief Marketing Officer at FlySafair.